Today's modern MMOs try to be masters of everything. They're spinning all the plates at the same time, and in reality, they're masters of nothing. MMOs need to specialize. Right now they try to be at least 7 different games at the same time. They try to have a PvP mode, they try to do story, leveling, landscape world events, crafting, in-game, and social experiences. And all 7 of these games that they're building all at the same time, every single one of them has its own gear, mechanics, and progression. PvP has its own gear. Story usually has its own gear. The leveling process has its own gear and progression. Landscape world events have their own specialized AoE gear that you need. Crafting has its own gear that you're creating that's for some reason different than all the other gear. The in-game has its own gear that you need for the highest level of play. And the social experience also has its own cosmetics so that you can show off to everyone else. Every single one of these is really just its own game. And so it's no wonder when a typical AAA company can't even build one good game, the MMOs generally fail to create 7 good games. And so that's why really only 2 MMOs have thoroughly succeeded in the space: World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy, at least in modern times. Those 2 games have been able to walk the high wire and balance themselves in a decent way, but even those games have at least one of the 7 not working. MMO developers should learn from Fortnite. Most companies saw Fortnite, and the lesson they learned was to make a battle royale. It's the new big thing. And in some respects they were right, but that's not the lesson they should have really learned. What they should have learned from Fortnite was to specialize. Fortnite was a completely different game at launch. There was no battle royale mode. It was a building combat landscape game. When Fortnite introduced the battle royale mode, and especially when it decided to quadruple down on it, it became what Fortnite was. And they got rid of all the other modes and just made Battle Royale be the game. And they quadrupled down on it and made Battle Royale be as good as possible, and it became one of the biggest games ever. MMO companies need to learn from Fortnite, and they need to specialize. And when these companies specialize, they need to cut out all the other types of games that they're trying to build. So here's what I'm proposing. There needs to be an MMO that releases that is called Endgame. And in Endgame, the whole game should be the end game. As many of you know, there's a meme as old as time, which is that the game doesn't really start until you get to the end. As modern MMOs have become more and more casual, that has been kind of true. Because the leveling experiences for a lot of modern MMOs are so casual, players never learn how to play the class or really play the game in general. They're just button mashing till they get to the end game, and then they start to learn the game. So if players are making it to end game and don't know how to play the game, then what's the point of the entire progression through the previous part of the game if it doesn't help prepare you for the end anyway? Why doesn't an MMO developer just cut out that entire part of the game and create a game that starts at endgame? And so in endgame, there is no landscape, there is no side quests, there's very little story, but all of it is in the instances. Its main focus is raiding and, six mans and, all that type of group content. And in Endgame, there's still progression through gear and through hub worlds. And so as you play in-game, you start out in like the starter city, and once you finish off all of the raiding content and all of the group content in the starter city that has, you know, all the NPCs you need and everything that you are used to in a hub city inside of an MMO, you then go on and you progress to the next part of Endgame, which is a new hub city that has all new raids, all new, group content, and it has a more efficient hub city. And as you progress through Endgame, you get to more and more efficient hubs until the very end, where it's just one guy that has everything you need. The hub dream of MMO players. And because there is still hub progression, and players have to actually complete and master the different group content as they progress through the game, if you make it to the next hub, everybody knows you're already qualified to do that new hub. And so there's much less of an emphasis on parsing and things like that, because if you've made it that far, that means you're really good, because the way that the instances are designed, as you progress further and further on, there's less and less of an ability to be carried, and your own abilities really start to shine. And so that's Endgame, the in-game MMO. I'm kind of surprised no developer has ever tried to do this, but because MMO developers think that you need 7 games, and you can't be an MMO if you're not all 7, I don't think anybody's tried it. No MMOs are trying to specialize. And so, if a game like Endgame were to come out, suddenly all of the players that enjoy Endgame would realize that there is their dream game existing out there, and they would all move over to go play Endgame. And that would force one of two things from the other developers. One, they'd make their endgames better, which is probably the most likely outcome, because it seems like MMO developers usually just copy each other on whoever is the most successful. Or two, they learn the lesson that everyone should have learned from Fortnite, and they specialize in their own way and start to master the story experience, for example, and maybe they get rid of a lot of the other parts of their games that are tying up resources and just really double down on making a fantastic story that players will enjoy, kind of like what Final Fantasy has done. And maybe another MMO has a really great PvP system, and so they decide to double down on that, and that becomes the game. And maybe another MMO has fantastic social features, and they decide they want to really hone in on that and become like the Second Life of MMOs. I think if a new MMO is going to succeed, it needs to specialize. I think the only way any sort of MMO is going to even try to top Final Fantasy or WoW, they have to specialize in something that's worth players' time, because there's no way, with how high video game costs are for development today, that they're going to be able to build all 7 games that they need to build at a quality that's high enough and with enough content to make up for the fact that they haven't been around for the last 10 years like these other MMO developers have been. And so the bar is so high for MMO development that it makes no sense to try to do all 7. Just try to do 1, maybe 2, maybe even 3 games, and ignore the rest. Why does every developer think they need to check all the boxes of what an MMO is? If you just make a great game that focuses on a certain aspect, you can be huge, and you can become the Fortnite of MMOs. Anyway, that's my thoughts on how the MMO industry needs to change with specialization. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think about this idea, and if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like. I'll see you guys again real soon for more content. Till then, peace! A-N-D-A-N-G-F-I-R-E, A-N-D-A-N-G, come follow me, A-N-D-A-N-G, follow, it's free, A-N-D-A-N-G-F-I-R-E.